Welcome back to the Marketing Stack podcast. And today I am sitting with Kirsten and Jeannie. And you guys are just doing some amazing stuff in six-figure business coaching. And Jeannie, you have your own other business where you're doing websites and funnels and marketing for your clients as well. And you guys have been in business for a long, long time. So I'm really curious to ask and to get into some of the nuts and bolts as to one, how you guys got started, yeah, how it all came about, how you guys got to partner together, and also how, like, what changes have you seen over the years of you guys doing this marketing business entrepreneurship thing for all these years. So welcome.
Yes, thank you so much. We're really, really excited to be here with you, Baran. So thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to be here and to talk to you and to talk to your audience. And yes, we've seen a lot of changes over the years in marketing. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kirsten, you want to tell them a little bit about our history?
yeah, absolutely. So I've always been self-employed. I joke that I'm not employable. My dad used to say you should go into the military if they would start you off as a general. So I'm very bossy. So I even have a pillow that my sister-in-law gave me that says I'm not bossy. I just have better ideas. So actually, I owned my mortgage company at the time, and Jeannie and her husband had come in for a loan, and I got to know them like you do through the process. A couple of years later, they were calling to say, "Hey, the rates have gone down. What should we do?" And I knew from our first conversation with Jeannie that she'd always wanted to start her own business. That was something, we kind of talked about when we first met. And she said, "Well, I did actually leave my job and started my business." And I said, "How is it going?" And she said, "It's going," And she said, "I feel like I need some help or a mentor." And at the time, I was running two different businesses, but I had started coaching on the side. Like business coaching just kind of came to me. I didn't really go to it, so to speak. And I think that's because I did so many loans for people that were self-employed. So they would call me and say, "Hey, you see my business tax returns, you see my personal tax returns, you know everything about me and my business. Can I take you to lunch and pick your brain?" So that's how my coaching kind of started. So I said, "Hey, I'm happy to mentor you. Like, let's get together." And so at that time, I'm going to age us, Jeannie. I'm really going to age us. Marketing was really about getting websites for businesses. We're talking 15 years ago, and websites have been around a lot longer, but you know how it takes small businesses a while to move there. And so Jeannie was doing websites, rack cards, business cards, brochures, things for trade shows. And this is right when Facebook kind of launched fan pages. LinkedIn came on the scene. People were now starting to talk about blogging and email marketing. So we came up with an idea to put together a focus group of business owners. And we just asked them, like, what are your questions about email marketing and blogging and Facebook and LinkedIn? And of course, a lot of people thought, oh, Facebook is just for kids, it's not for business. And so after that focus group, Jeannie put together 5 amazing classes and invited people to them and actually filled them up. There were like, a lot of times there was 50 to 100 people like packed in for these classes.
Wow.
And it was amazing. But what happened was, she had started her business with a toddler and a newborn. So she's at home being a mom and running her business. And all of these people that she had taught how to do their marketing called her and said, "Can you do this for me? Will you do my email marketing? Will you set up my business page? Will you set up my LinkedIn page? Will you post for me?" And it was like an avalanche. And she's kind of like deer in the headlights, right?
Mm.
And so I had read a lot, the 4-hour work week was popular back, I think, 2006. And so I read a lot about outsourcing overseas because you know how it is for most small businesses. Even though you get busy, you don't always have a lot of cash flow right away.
Right.
And so hiring stateside was not really an option. So I said, "Would you want to try this? I'll help you every step of the way, but I've never done this." And so she was a good sport. She said, "Sure." And that's where our journey went about 15 years ago to outsourcing overseas. And we joked that it was like baptism by fire. If it could be done wrong, we did it wrong. But Jeannie is amazing at documenting systems and processes. So over the years, we just got this, incredible, process for hiring the right person. Like we train, our virtual assistants, we train our clients' virtual assistants, and then we have this amazing process for managing them to make sure that getting the workflow done efficiently happens. And so it really did just kind of come out of a big problem that we had and that we solved, and now we help other people solve that same problem.
Wow. I can't imagine what the business world or even technology like the internet was like that back then, because now we have all these tools and we can manage things and we can track people's time, and there's payment gateways and there's platforms that you can manage, the payments and all of these things. But back then, was there any of that? I don't think so.
No. So basically, you go to a site, you place an ad, and people would reply, and everything was done via email, right? So it was just
Yeah.
email. So you were kind of interviewing via email. Like you didn't have the face-to-face with Zoom, and like you didn't have Messenger and Facebook. I think we quickly moved on to Skype, or there might have been something before Skype. I can't really. I think Skype was maybe the first. Was that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first kind of tool where we had instant conversation. It was crazy. It was definitely the wild west. And I think even in the Philippines, over the past 15 years, we've seen like English improve dramatically, skill sets improve dramatically. Like there's wonderful people constantly working to get better. So even that's made it a lot easier.
Hmm. You mentioned the Philippines a lot. Any particular reason why the Philippines?
So we've hired in like 6 different countries over the years because we definitely like to try new things. But we always kind of come back to the Philippines, and I think it's just a cultural thing. We do a lot of conversations with our clients about cultural differences because it's really important to understand how to work really well with someone who lives in a different country. Like communication styles are different. So when we've hired in other countries, and Jeannie and I still hire sometimes in other countries, not that often. But then in order to teach that, we'd have to teach, cultural differences for other countries. And for us, personally, we've just always had the best success with virtual assistants in the Philippines for us and for our clients. So that's what we tend to focus on.
And it's not necessarily because of the rate. It's more convenient because of language and those factors.
Yeah, I think the rate is, you can find the rate similar in other countries, obviously. But yeah, I think the fact that the Philippines, I feel like they've spent so much time, the government has spent so much time on the infrastructure for internet and things like that. I think they've also spent a lot of time creating an outsourced workforce, right? So, they kind of go into job hunting knowing that they may be working from their home for a company in the US or Australia or the UK. So they're kind of conditioned to want this type of work. And they definitely have the skill sets to do this type of work.
Yeah. I know a lot of like phone services used to go through to the Philippines before, where it's like you're dialing a toll-free number, but actually it's somebody foreign who's sitting in their house, maybe answering the phone, but representing the big bank or whatever. And that always fascinated me because when I first heard of that, or I first phoned, called a number, and there was this other type of voice. Me being South African, I was only used to South African voices, and it's like all of a sudden I'm speaking to an Indian dude, and I think that the call went through to India, and I was like, am I at the right place? So that brings in a whole dynamic of, well, how do you operate with people who are maybe client facing, who are in other countries?
Okay, so for us, generally, we don't have virtual assistants interfacing with clients. So we've kind of really focused on helping our clients hire what we refer to as a marketing virtual assistant. Mm-hmm. So this is someone who does their video editing, repurposes their content, helps them with email marketing, helps them with the technology of their funnels. So they tend to be more back end. Mm-hmm. However, once our clients have gotten used to having all of those things done for them, we do have virtual assistants that will do outreach. So for example, one of our virtual assistants handles everyone that comes into our Facebook group. She makes sure that all of their information is in our CRM. She makes sure that she sends them a personal note, right, to welcome them to the group. And then generally what will happen is when that person replies, Jeannie will take over that conversation. So that because the goal is for us to build relationships, to build relationships. So, Angela can start that conversation for us, but then we kind of take it over. However, we do have clients who will have their virtual assistants confirm appointments and things like that. So it definitely happens. It's just a trust factor, right? You have to hire the right person for that particular job, and then you have to train them really well to do that job. And then you just have to, help them improve until you feel like you can really let them do that for you.
Right. Jeannie, if you could answer this one, what has been the best experience you've ever had with a virtual assistant?
Oh, we've had tons of great experiences. We've had some not so great experiences, but yeah, my favorite part is when I can assign them work and then they work overnight because it's 12 hours difference for us.
Yep.
And I can wake up in the morning and everything I need done is done. So I am just way ahead of the game because, it's something would have taken me, a couple more days to get through because I've also got, other things going on. So that's my absolute favorite part.
I see. And your worst?
Ooh. My worst actually was one of the first virtual assistants that we had, and we didn't hear from her for like a few days, which was very unusual because we at least chit chat online, every day just to kind of check in, or we're exchanging, notes with each other. And it turned out she had to go to the hospital. So eventually she had her sister actually send us pictures, not of her, but, like just to prove that she was there. And it was like, no, I don't need proof. I just want to make sure that you're okay, that we didn't lose you. So, so there are a few little issues and things that you need to know about. And that is, have a second way of communicating with your virtual assistant in case something happens. Because they also have, they're not hurricanes. What are they over there? They're tsunamis. Yeah. And there's a really bad season. And so they'll lose internet connection and they'll lose. So, there are just things that you really need to know about. And some reasons why things might happen that you don't expect.
Yeah.
I will say over the years, we had terminated people. So like we've had to fire people. So, I'm usually like, we joke, bad cop, good cop, bad cop, good cop. So I'm usually, so we have made bad hiring choices, right? So we've hired people, you spend time training them. And this was especially early on. Like we definitely made lots of hiring mistakes because we didn't know what we were doing. So a lot of times it wasn't their fault. We didn't hire the right hard skill set and soft skill set for what we needed, so we've definitely had, experiences as we were learning, where we've had people who, were paying, but they just weren't getting the work done. And there's always excuses, right? And so you can only give someone so much time. So we've never had anyone steal passwords or do anything like that. But we have had to let people go who just for whatever reason, a bad hiring choice for us, or they thought they could work for 4 or 5 different people and they couldn't manage workflow. So we have had to let people go. And that's always hard. I think, I do that part. So Jeannie's like, oh, that's not the worst part because she doesn't do that part. But it is hard, especially, because when you hire someone, you invest time in them. And so you want to make sure you get it right. And so that was a big challenge for us in the beginning.
Yeah. And we know what to look for now. So we can make those decisions faster. We can recognize this person doesn't have the skill set we thought they did. So, let's just move on.
Yeah. Well, you've mentioned a couple of obstacles there just in those two questions. So it's like, yeah, people struggle finding the right person, right? And the only way you find the right person is to find a lot of people, and then you find the right one or two or three. That's been my experience. And just from my own, so if you don't know my story, I started on Upwork 8 years ago now at something like $11 an hour, and built myself up to where I now have a thriving business and agency. And yeah, like I think back then or even now, it's like I thrive on service, I thrive on communication, I thrive on the fact that I'm speaking to you now at 10:30 on a Friday night, doing this podcast. It's because I have that work ethic, I have that level of commitment to my own success and to my own survival, my own business, right? So I found that a lot of people don't think that way, they don't work that way, even though they've been trained or they have the skills. And that's kind of unfortunate. And as entrepreneurs, we do need quick turnaround. We need the skill set, but also we need like good communication. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we've been really lucky because when we hire, most of our clients are hiring for someone for like 20 hours a week, which is about $200 a month. So 20 hours every week is about $200 US dollars a month, or 40 hours a week, which is of course $400 a month. So most of our clients are hiring people who they may have a full-time job, but then they'll work for our client for 20 hours a week, or they work for a client full time.
Mhm.
And I think that's a little bit different than a freelancer. Our clients do still outsource to freelancers. We do cover that as well. More teaching, but most of them are hiring someone as a team member. And I think that makes a little bit of a difference. And then all of our training is around, one, again, hiring the right person, but then managing workflow. So it's one of those things where you're still the boss and they're still the employee. I feel like when you hire someone on Fiverr, it's more of a business to business transaction because you're a professional, like you're a business owner. If I were to hire you to create a funnel for me, I've got to trust that you know what you're doing and that you're going to guide the process because I maybe wouldn't know how to do those things.
Yes.
Where when you hire a team member, it's different. You have to be the one who is in charge, assigns work, and manages workflow. And that's where having SOPs, project management software, that's where that makes it really easy. And that's how you have success.
Mhm. I was going to ask you about because you mentioned the full-time thing a lot on your YouTube channel as well. And I wanted to ask why the full-time? And I guess you've answered that in a way where part-time, it's too flexible maybe, or it's
Well,
just not enough.
Well, we're not opposed to our clients hiring part-time, right? We don't mind if they wanted to hire someone for 10 hours a week or 20 hours a week, because we do have several part-time VAs that work for us as well as full-time virtual assistants. But it's a little bit different than hiring someone as a team member and hiring someone as a freelancer, right?
Mm.
Because as a freelancer, you manage your workflow,
Right.
right? You take on the project, you say, hey, Kirsten, I can have this funnel built for you in X amount of weeks as long as you give me these things by this time. You're in control.
Right.
Where this is a little bit different, we're having them actually hire a team member where they're in control of workflow, they're in control of getting their deadlines met. And so it really just depends on how much work they have. But ultimately, what we have found is that if you hire the right person and they come into your business and they see how much structure you have and how much training is provided for them, and that you're on top of your side, right? Then it makes a big difference and they'll stay with you for a long time because that makes you a really good boss, right? We've all had jobs at some point in our life where they just kind of throw you in, you don't get very good training, there's not a lot of structure set up, and you constantly dread going to work because you just feel like you're failing because you're drowning, but you don't know what to do.
Right.
And so it's really important for us that, when our clients hire a virtual assistant, they bring them on as a team member and they see them as a valuable asset and someone that they want to be with them for years and years and years.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I had never thought about it that way, actually. And now that you say that, yeah, I've been hired either as a freelancer or as a business owner, like to strategically build out things for my clients. Right. And right. I've had issues where clients were giving me the strategy, even though okay, fine, you've given me the strategy, but you're seeing me as a taskmaster. And right. As an entrepreneur, entrepreneurs don't like being told what to do. It's just, it's a shitty thing. Like we hate that. And so, so that always used to bother me. Not to say that I wouldn't do the work. Like I'd do the work. Like, yeah, we need the cash, the client, keep the client happy. But yeah, I guess you've categorized those two factors for me. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And we do actually spend time with our clients talking to them about if you did need to outsource, let's say you wanted a really, really professional website, they should hire an agency, right?
For sure.
And the reason why you hire that agency, let's say they hired you to do that website, you're hiring them because they're professional, because they know what needs to be done. They know how long it takes. So with us, when we talk about hiring a freelancer for a project management, we talk about that freelancer should provide the contract. They're the ones that are managing the process. And then you work collaboratively with them, right? But you're the freelancers managing how that project runs. With Jeannie's agency clients, she manages that process, right? She brings that client on with a certain amount of tasks that they're going to do for them. But she says, this is what I need from you. These are the timelines we'll meet. She's in control of that workflow. And so that's a different process. And we do really train our clients on that because you're not always just hiring a team member. Sometimes you do need to hire a freelancer who is a professional business owner who can guide you and help you do something very specific.
Right. Yeah. That's cool. Thank you for that. So you mentioned some rates, right? $400 for, a 40-hour work week. So that's 160 hours. So that's like $2.50 an hour. if you really like break it down.
Right.
How do your clients normally feel about hiring that at that rate? Like, sure, there's huge benefits in terms of budgeting and things, but from an ethical point of view, have you had discussions around that? Is that something that comes up?
Yeah. Yeah, we actually have a video on our YouTube channel called "Is It Ethical to Hire in the Philippines?" Because we do get that question quite a bit. And so it costs about 80% less to live in the Philippines than it does in the US, right? So we're looking at cost differences. But we also, because we are bringing on team members, we're talking to our clients about what holidays their virtual assistant gets off, but what they don't work, that they get 1 week of vacation, at the first week, and then you move that to 2 weeks after the first year. We talk about the 13th month, which is a tradition in the Philippines where in December you pay them for an extra month of work. So we do go over all of that with our clients because, again, they're not hiring a freelancer to do a specific task. They're hiring a team member.
Yep.
And so, again, when we get into cultural differences, we talked about different holidays, what to expect. So they end up making more, but we also have they end up working less, I guess, because of the holidays and vacation and stuff. But and they make more because of the 13th month. But we also talk about bonuses. Like if you've had a really great month, if your virtual assistant got a ton of stuff done and that resulted in you getting just a ton of revenue in, give them a bonus, right?
Right.
So we always talk about share the wealth, when to give them a raise and when to give them a bonus. Because again, for us and for our clients, the goal is long-term team members because it takes time to hire and train. And I'll have to tell you another thing that's really interesting is when we get a lot of kind of pushback about hiring overseas, what I can tell you, inevitably, what happens is when a virtual assistant's hired to help with marketing, right? The marketing gets done. And a lot of business owners do not get their marketing done. It always gets put on the back burner, it gets pushed to the bottom of the list.
Right.
So when they hire a marketing virtual assistant and now their marketing is consistently getting done and they're generating leads and they're bringing in revenue, what happens is they then have the opportunity to employ other people. And that will often be in the US. We had a professional organizer, and she was really good at her marketing because professional organizers are very well organized with almost everything in their lives.
Yep.
But she would market and then she'd get busy. So she'd stop marketing and she'd get busy. So she was on that roller coaster. And we had a conversation. And so she ended up, and she had a lot of resistance. Like she really wanted to hire locally. And we get that. But once she hired a marketing virtual assistant, what happened was the marketing was getting done and then she stayed busy. She wasn't riding those income roller coasters, but it allowed her to end up hiring 2 or 3 more professional organizers because she started getting so much business in. Now she was employing other people in her community serving clients. So it sometimes just allows you to actually build your business a lot faster. And that allows you to employ people locally.
Yeah, I have that as well. I've experienced that where it's like, oh yeah, got time for content, so let's go make videos and let's like do stuff, and then it gets busy and it's like, don't really have time for myself now. I like can't even go to the toilet type of thing. Literally, like that's sometimes how my days used to go. I've gotten better.
We get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we totally get that.
What is the craziest task that you've ever outsourced?
Ooh.
I think we might be very boring, Jeannie. We're very vanilla, very boring.
Right?
Yeah. We are pretty consistent with what we do. So, Jeannie has her team of virtual assistants that work for her agency, obviously, are doing client work.
What I love actually is that we ask them to do things that we don't necessarily know if they can do. And I love being surprised, by, oh my gosh, this is amazing, because I love designing. I love design work. That's kind of where I started way back when. But I don't have the time to do it. And, when they can come back with something that's designed better than something that I could have done, it's such a wonderful surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. Tim Ferriss in the 4 Hour Workweek talks about how he did an experiment to, I think, buy flowers for his girlfriend or the birthday gift or something or the other. And he hadn't even seen what it was. And when it was delivered, he just got this huge thank you. And he was just like, this is so amazing. Like, so that's where that question comes from. Because I think like the dream for entrepreneurs is to like just hand over everything. But then at the same time, there's this huge risk that we think we have when handing over what seems to be our life to
Right.
the other person, especially when it comes to like passwords or, managing QuickBooks or your accounting or whatever. How do you overcome those? Like, how do you help clients work through those challenges?
Okay. I think the first thing, and I think Jeannie would probably agree, is hire the right person. It always goes back to that, right? And we are asked all the time if we're an agency that just provides virtual assistants, and we do not. And the reason for that is because we feel like part of having a healthy working relationship with a virtual assistant or an employee for that matter is personality. Like you've got to click with that person. And the second part of that is it really helps if they're passionate about what you do. So, for example, you asked about awkward, but, we have like a person who does like a sex therapist, right? So with interviewing, we had to make sure the person that she hired was comfortable with those conversations, right? Because, that it's really important. But what we found with our clients, because we do talk a lot about, being able to connect with them as a person, and then also making sure that they're somewhat passionate about what you do as well, is that we find that our clients often hire someone who are very much like them. So we had a dietitian who hired a person in the Philippines who was also a dietitian, right? So now all of a sudden they're having these great conversations, they're passionate about the same things. And when you start to build relationships, because that's what trust is, right? Trust is about relationships. You invited us to be on the podcast. We said yes. You had to trust that we would show up. We have to trust that you're not going to, edit what we say and make us sound silly or stupid or something, right? So it's a trust factor. And so we do talk about like when you hire the right person, you start to build trust. And then by managing things through systems and processes, which includes, giving passwords slowly, like you're going to have them do certain tasks that they'll have passwords for. And as that trust builds, you can work with them to do other things. Now, us personally, we generally recommend having your bookkeeping done locally or within your country, so to speak. I'm not really comfortable giving bank accounts or things like that overseas. I know a lot of people do. I'm just not there yet. I'm a little bit of a control freak about certain things, and money tends to be one of them. But you definitely could. But it's about building the relationship and then having a structure to make sure that you're delegating those passwords and those tasks. And again, as that person builds a relationship with you, then you can trust them more. On the flip side of that, you have to think about it. That virtual assistant works for you for 2 weeks, not knowing if you're going to pay them. And we hear all kinds of cool stories from virtual assistants who've been hired from people who are total jerks to them, who, have them do all kinds of work and then don't pay them or pay them late or pay them less. So we have to realize it's a relationship and it is a two-way street.
Right. Yeah. That is an important point, because I think, yes, some entrepreneurs or certain business owners can be very difficult. We'll say difficult to work with. I've had my own experiences as well. Even being an agency, it can be challenging. And so, yeah, that is important. So at the beginning of the podcast, we spoke about sort of the change that might have happened or that has happened, not only because of COVID, but also prior. Would you say that because the tools are becoming easier to use, that more people are comfortable with being able to hire outside?
Yeah, I would definitely think so. It's really funny because I remember, long ago, if you asked someone to get on a video call with you, it was like, oh no, I don't want you to see me, and now it's just commonplace, which is fantastic.
Well, if you think of it, of like, we used to have a very early version of MailChimp or a very early version of Constant Contact, which was actually very difficult to use. And you needed to have a specialist type of skill to be able to set it up and get it all working and create those automations and all of those things. Whereas now, I think because the platforms, the software has gotten better, faster, there's more training around it, there's much more like webinars, there's more help guides. For me, I think it's easy, but then it's like certain entrepreneurs or certain business owners may think, oh, they can figure it out themselves. Like this looks easy, but then they don't outsource because they think that it's they can't find the person who's skilled enough.
So I think what happens with entrepreneurs, and again, I've been self-employed my whole life, is just because you can do something doesn't mean you should, right? Because it's not always the best use of your time. And if you think about it, like, I know you said you started off at $11 an hour. Let's just say, I don't know where you are, but let's say you're $100 an hour now. Does it make sense for you to do $11 an hour task now?
No way.
It doesn't, right? You should spend your genius and your time doing what, you're paid this money to do. And so for a lot of entrepreneurs, it's understanding that just because you can do it or you can learn it doesn't mean you should. And I think that men are far better at outsourcing and delegating than women. I think women have this thing with self-worth and they feel like they should be able to do it all. And so they kind of beat themselves up. I mean, that was kind of Jeannie's story. Like, maybe I need a better time management plan, or maybe I need a better tool. But the reality is there just was not enough hours in the day to do all of the work that she had coming in and manage great client relationships. So again, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. Another thing that I very much different from a lot of entrepreneurs is you should be able to do it yourself before you hire a delegator, right? I know a lot of entrepreneurs are like, you need to know how to do everything in your business. I can guarantee you, most huge investors don't know how to do anything in their business, right? Look at Warren Buffett. Do you think he can go in and sell a house and do all these, like, what I'm saying? Like, he doesn't do all the things in all of his businesses. He can't know how, right? Yeah. So I feel like the difference between a self-employed person and an entrepreneur is understanding that you can hire the right person, because hiring is a skill. I'm not a tech person. Like, I joke that there's very few days that I'm not saying bad words to my computer and threatening to throw it in the lake out back. So we tend to attract a lot of people like me who are not great with tech. They don't enjoy technology. And then they're, oh, dear God, if you could have someone do that, thank you. And what happens is they end up valuing and appreciating their virtual assistant because they don't have to learn how to do video editing. They don't have to learn how to set up their funnels. They don't have to learn how to set up their email to go out each week. It's being done for them. Right. And I think that's a very powerful place to come from. And it's also win-win, because the virtual assistant enjoys doing the video editing. They're in their unique genius, right? They love all the tech stuff. They love all the creative stuff. And so it really is a win-win. Yeah, so it really boils down to, just because you know how to do it doesn't mean you should do it. You do not have to know how to do something to delegate it. And the third part of that was, your self-worth should not be tied up as an entrepreneur in the fact that you can do everything. That's not what it's meant. That's not what it means to be an entrepreneur. Sorry, I got super excited about that topic.
Has there been instances where it hasn't worked out for a client? Okay,
so here's where our clients struggle the most. And we actually, probably some video of some of them talking about this, but, let's say they've hired in corporate America, or they've had, team members that they've managed in corporate America. They will often come in and kind of peruse what we tell them to do and not do it. And inevitably they hire the wrong person. And then they come back and they say, I wish I listened to you. I'm going to go back and follow step by step. I'm going to do this. And inevitably they end up hiring the right person. So I think what happens is when people have failed, so to speak, it's because they haven't followed the structure. And it's the same structure we follow. If it's been a few months or a year since we've hired someone new, we go back to our hiring process and do it the exact same way. Like, we don't reinvent the wheel every time we hire someone. We go back and do it step by step by step, because that's what works. Yeah. So I think, and then as far as like, once they've hired them, even if it is the right person, when it comes to managing that person, like, we have to grow as entrepreneurs. Like, if you've never managed team members, it means you're learning new skills. You're learning how to say, oh my gosh, you did a fabulous job on these certain edits. However, I don't really care for that transition. Could you please change that? Learning how to give constructive criticism and positive feedback. I think those can be hard for people sometimes. So as we grow and get better at being bosses, you find that your virtual assistants grow and become better virtual assistants.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of video editing, as you know, YouTube as a platform has evolved over time. And I know you guys talk about YouTube on your YouTube channel. You talk about how one of your business taglines includes YouTube as well, or video marketing. YouTube, in my opinion, has evolved where quality needs to be like top notch, like to a point where a lot of people say, yeah, you could do it from your phone and all of this stuff. But from the creators that I've watched or that I follow, their quality is always like high quality, fully scripted, lots of B-roll. Like, it's just like almost a mini documentary or mini like Netflix show that they're putting together each week. Now, is it possible to find somebody who can edit those videos in the Philippines? Is it possible?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it is. It's really funny too, because when we first were getting ready to hire someone to do video editing, we had like folders and things set up, and thought we had to find our own B-roll, and we had to tell them exactly every step that had to be done. But you'd be surprised that the people who know how to do video editing, they know where to find the extra B-roll. They know how to put some really cool animations in there. And I was totally surprised. So we ended up never having to supply them any B-roll. So because we were thinking, oh my gosh, we've got to video ourselves, walking or doing this, or the dog running, or something that had to be added, and we didn't have to do any of that, because as you said, technology has come so far, and there's so many more tools and resources out there and they know how to find them. So it's been such a pleasant surprise.
Interesting.
Yeah, and part of our training is actually we do actually have places where they can get free B-roll, because we do go into a lot about you cannot use things that have to be paid for. So we do, for us, we pay for a lot of different services. So for our virtual assistants, they have access to some free B-roll and images, but they also have access to paid stuff as well. And we do talk about that. We also talk about, your virtual assistant isn't a mind reader. So we primarily work with women. We do have male clients. So we want, our B-roll and our images to represent more women than men. So it's just a matter of talking them through that. But it's interesting you brought up YouTube, because YouTube surpassed Netflix last year as far as revenue. First time ever. Like, that's amazing to me.
Yeah.
And it was more amazing is that, that out of that, however many billion it was that YouTube brought in, 55% of that goes to the creators.
Yes.
So when you look at that, and of course, Netflix spends a fortune on creating content too, but this is where, your average Joe can get a piece of that pie, where they may not get cast on a show for Netflix, right?
Right.
I feel like what happens when people start a channel is they have to start where they are. Like, we still video from our phone. I'm not a tech person. If I have to set up a fancy camera, I'm going to throw that out back to the lake, and it's just not going to be good. So for me, less is more, and just get it done. And what I find is that most people will start off with their phone, some good lighting. We talk a lot about not having clutter and things like the background. And then you can move up. Like, if you want to get fancier lights, or if you want to get, backdrops, or if you want to get a better camera, those are all things you can do. And then, of course, as you're making more money, if you want to have someone follow you around the camera so that you're in all of your B-roll, drinking your coffee and walking, that's great. But I think that a lot of times people are searching for things, which is what makes YouTube amazing, SEO, search engine optimization. So if you can get your title to rank and people see it, I don't think people judge the content as harshly as we do, right? I think if you're answering someone's question and you're giving them the information, a lot of times they aren't quite as picky about what it looks like as maybe we are, because we as creators, we think about what everything looks like. And we always tell our clients, don't let that stop you. Like, every single person who has amazing videos now had crap videos in the beginning. Like, you've got to start somewhere, and then you get better.
Right. Just like work as well. It starts at $11 an hour, and well, I'm living the best life now. So it's the same.
Yeah.
Well, any final thoughts? Anything you wanted to bring to the audience? Any places that people can reach out? You got any promotions going on at the moment?
Sure. We have a free resource for you guys. It's called Double Your Income with a Marketing Virtual Assistant, even on a tight budget. And so we'll provide that for you. And you can also find us on YouTube at Six Figure Business Coaching. And we have lots of training videos and tutorials there. So absolutely.
Cool. Jeannie, anything from your end?
The resource is actually at outsourcingforbosses.com. So like Kirsten said, we'll give you that. But I just wanted to say one last thing, in that one of the most exciting things for us has been watching people who were solopreneurs, who are doing it all themselves, hire someone, and how it made them feel. Like, they felt like, oh my gosh, now I'm a business owner. It's almost like they started standing taller and they felt stronger. And that's such a wonderful feeling to give that, to someone else. So, there's so many fears and unknowns, and, I know I'm doing too much and I don't know what to do. And, so we just love helping walk them through the process and seeing, all their eyes widen and their they're thinking bigger, and everything seems more attainable because they don't have to do it themselves. So it's just really, really rewarding.
Yeah.
It's always nice when, like you said earlier, when somebody amazes you, something that you thought you could do well, and the other person or somebody else, or especially somebody in your team, does it better than you, then it feels like teamwork. Then it feels like you're creating something special.
So we just want to say thank you so much for having us. It's been really fun.
Yeah.
We can talk about this all day long.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. We really, really appreciate it.
Sure. You're welcome.